Welcome back. You're watching 101. We're speaking with actor, director, and producer Shekhar Kapur. You had that first film that you directed, Masoom, which was, I think, 1984. And it was well received in India, but it was Bandit Queen 11 years later that really put you on the map internationally and domestically, of course. But it was a controversial film. What was it that really that struck people about that made it so difficult for you?
Bandit Queen was about caste politics. Now, not only was it caste politics, it used the language of the people of Phoolan Devi, who the film was about, and that kind of language was never seen in Hindi screen before. Full frontal nudity, which in film wasn't about nudity. For me, it was nakedness, which is a little different. Had not been seen before. So other than that, but the most problematical thing for Indians to accept and for the censor board to accept that time was the caste politics shown so effectively and brazenly, because India is still a country ruled by high caste. Even if you look at the elections, long after Bandit Queen's been released, the biggest fear that I hear when I walk around, people say, oh my God, what will we do if Mayawati comes to power? Mayawati represents the low caste, and all of high caste India has been ruling the country for so long, and the biggest fear is that a low caste person will come to power. Now, it's not that she doesn't have problems, it's not that there are other problems associated with Mayawati, least of all which is complete corruption, but a large part of that also is, how will a low caste woman understand world politics? How will she understand banking? How will she understand economics? How will she understand the future of the Indian economy? There is that prejudice. And so they're afraid. So Bandit Queen at that time raised the issue of a high caste, low caste politics. In fact, I sat in a plane one day and a member of India's parliament, a very influential member, said, why do you want to release this film? Do you really want somebody like Phoolan Devi to come to parliament? Those were prophetic words, because when the film came out, that's exactly what happened. Phoolan Devi, this low caste bandit, became a member of India's parliament. No education, that's democracy. No education, a language that every third word is a pretty nasty word, was in India's parliament.
That film, though, did change the parameters for you as a director. What was the biggest change you noticed in terms of how people treated you?
I had Indian audiences, women, walking out and saying, we used to love your films, why did you make this? And screaming at me at the end of the film. When you make a film to arouse anger, don't be surprised if some of that anger is directed back at you. But in the international circuit, it became for a while a film that became the underground film of Hollywood. So everybody was watching it, and I wasn't aware of that till it got a lot of attention at the Cannes Film Festival, and I started to get these calls from agents in Hollywood who said, "Are you the director of Bandit Queen?" I said, "Yes." "Can you come here? Do you speak Hindi? Do you speak English?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Can you tell an international story?" So I realized that was circulating as one of those little films in the community, and that's how it all started.
When you got to Hollywood, obviously the thing that put you on the map was the historical biography of Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth I, Elizabeth with Kate Blanchett. How did you find that experience working on such a big-scale film after having worked in the Indian film industry? What kind of adjustment did you have to make personally?
Well, when they said that you're going to have 24 million to direct this film, remember, I'd never made a film in more than $1 million, and I suddenly had 23 extra $1 million to make a film. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But then, I remember the first day of the shoot, I spoke to my AD, who's my assistant director, and I said, I'm shooting this area. Can we isolate this area from the tourists because it was a tourist hotspot there? And he said, yeah. I went there, and there was all these trucks and caravans standing there. And I said to him, I said, Tommy, I thought that this was going to be isolated. What's all those? He said, well, sir, that's our crew. And I looked, and they said, well, that's where your trailer is, and that's the couple of catering vans, and that's it. And I realized, suddenly it came to me, these are my toys, but these are my toys that are sucking up a lot of the 24 million extra budget. So I pretty well got used to the fact that it doesn't mean more time to make the film. It just means more technology and more expensive. Instead of eating on the ground in all the films and being slopped with food of that, what we call, oh God, here comes the unit food again, it was now a 5-course meal. And I promise you, by the end of it, I was begging the producer to stop the 5-course meal, so I got to have more time to finish my film.
You spent some time shuttling between India and America. And you spent quite a while in India, going back into working, doing various projects there. How were you treated in India, having become sort of a celebrity in Hollywood?
Well, it's a little sad. You know, we still carry the white man's burden, and it's still a little bit of colonial attitude. Been making films, very popular films in India, but of course, when after making Elizabeth, I was nominated, or my film got nominated for many Oscars, suddenly I was a bigger celebrity in India, and I actually said it. I've been nominated and won so many awards in India, so why are you guys so surprised? Why are you treating me as a greater celebrity because Hollywood accepts me? It's a sad commentary on the way we are. It takes a long time to offload a century or a couple of centuries of colonization.
Is it that in Bollywood itself, the aspiration to Hollywood is, whether it's open or quiet, it's the big thing that everyone wants to move on?
Well, you know what? If you're making Bhojpuri films or Gujarati or Bengali films, you aspire to Bollywood. You can't really aspire. And it's quite natural to aspire to a larger market. But there's something working there that goes beyond the aspiration to a larger market. It's the acceptance by them.
Ask him if he knows the penalty for being a spy.
I'm not a spy. The Mahdi's men have left these bodies to keep you here.
Tell him I'll bury him alive if he speaks another word of English.
لا تتكلم بالإنجليزية.
To some extent, you got criticism when you made The Four Feathers. You came back to Hollywood in 2002 and made that film because people said you portrayed the British Army very negatively. I know, being a partition baby, you have some of those issues you've openly spoken about. But do you feel that criticism was fair?
Oh, I think that the criticism was something that I opened out, and I said the only way I could make this film was to make it an anti-colonial film. The original book and all the films before that were about, never questioned the idea that actually Gordon was an alien in Sudan, and that the British forces went to beat and to beat back what they called the natives. They called them, the book calls them fuzzy wuzzies, for God's sake. You know, how colonial can you get that? You can get more colonial than that. And so I said, I want to make an anti-colonial film, and everybody said yes. I said, look, surely even the Americans post-Vietnam do not believe in colonization. Everybody said yes. And I started to write scenes in that film that would represent that idea of anti-colonial colonization, anti-colonial ideas, and 9/11 happened. And as 9/11 happened and Iraq happened, my Kasbahs that I shot in Morocco suddenly started to look like the Kasbahs of Afghanistan, where the Taliban was, and Iraq. And the film was suddenly seen as a very subversive film. And I was actually in the theaters. I'm surprised they released it. And I was in the theaters, and when in the big battle scene, suddenly the British went out and to beat the Sudanese forces down and all the individuals and the tribes that came to fight them. But when the tribes fought back and started to killing, they watched, the whole audience was booing the film. It was the 9/11 that just shifted. And I wasn't allowed to shoot the scenes. They were taken out of the film. The battle scenes were dumbed down. Now, I'm sure if this happened in India, we'd do the same. The censor board. There was no censor board. There was just a little quiet understanding of this is what we have to do.
You also got involved in a lot of other projects over the years, Virgin Comics and Entertainment, to try to bring a new kind of media again to the Indian market. What are you hoping to achieve with that? What is the goal?
Well, the idea, I think, is that myself, it all came with me with the realization that if I don't find a way to tell my stories on new media, I'm going to turn into a dinosaur. So I think that soon, you know, films will be an option, but it won't be the first option. Most people will be downloading whatever we create, and when they download, they will not download and watch me for 2 hours in the kind of attention span that I have, the facilities I have in a darkened theater and nobody disturbing. They will be multitasking, looking at everything else and watching my film. So it was those ideas that led me to say, well, wait a minute, is this a problem or is it an opportunity? And I realized the opportunity was that I could talk to them in a multifarious ways, in different ways, and actually not just in terms of revenue streams, but in terms of talking to many more people at the same time. You know, I don't have to wait till a line forms outside the movie theater. I can talk, and if I'm really good at it, maybe 300 million people can pick up what I'm saying within 10 minutes. You know, so it's a great opportunity, provided I can adapt and understand the culture, this culture of what I call the new media, which is not really new media anymore.
What is it you'd like to leave as a legacy? How would you like to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as a guy that is a person that actually tried very hard to achieve the unknown. That was it. Is aspired to the unknown and asked the right questions.
Shekhar, I wish you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.